we are saying we have a call center, kind of an informal call center solution for any PBX, including ones that already have real big call centers on them. We're not looking to displace a call center in the PBX world. We're looking to augment call processing in kind of a different way. This is a unique product. No one else really has anything quite like this, and that makes it a little challenging to present and kind of get the mental image going for people. But I think we can give you some interesting information on this new way of handling calls. And we're in a great position to do this because we've been doing it for a long time. We've been out there in the market as long as there was a market. We were doing unified communications before there was unified communications, and so we have a lot of experience, and that's handy. And this app in particular actually has had several lifetimes within our product. So we've got a lot of experience talking about this subject that we're talking about today. And like so many of our products, so many of our different applications, it's all about interoperability. Yes, we're going to show you an interesting way to handle incoming calls, but it also has that same message we always have, where we don't really care what PBX you want to put it behind. It works anywhere. We're going to still be able to tie into all sorts of interesting things in the enterprise, including various enterprise data sources, and we're pretty open in terms of what those are as well. So I think you'll find that this is going to be one of those product sessions that gives you some new and interesting information. Now, this is sort of a slide we always start with because our architecture and the way we were designed has really given us the position we have in the market today. We have a unique solution in that we have a single platform that does all of these solutions we talk about. You don't buy an extra server to put in speech. You don't buy an extra server to put in mobile devices. You don't buy an extra server to put in IVR. And of course, you don't buy an extra server to put in TeamQ. That's kind of the message here. This is just a software license on our CXE system. So if you're deploying a CXE system or you're looking at deploying a CXE system, this is just one more software license you can take advantage of to extend the value of that platform. It uses all the resources on the platform, and as we look at what it does, you'll kind of get an idea for how it's integrated into the system itself. Now, when we start talking about TeamQ, there's sort of an ongoing challenge for us in coming up with an interesting tagline, you know, a nice short five-word phrase that really talks about what this is, and we're not able yet to distill that down. This is what we call an informal call center call routing solution. And what we mean by that is this is not for the room full of people, you know, that are checking on order status, where you have, you know, 50 agents in a room, 500 agents in a room. They answer the call, they go to their computer, they read off some information to the caller, they hang up, maybe they go into wrap up for 25 seconds, and they go take another call. Those people have no personal workflow, they only have process workflow. And there are plenty of great systems out there, great ACD systems that manage that do all the things you want in that environment to trim that extra average of 5 seconds off a call to get your productivity up. That is not what this product is about. This product is about groups of people who are taking calls, but it's kind of an informal process. In other words, yes, they're taking calls, but they're doing other things at the same time. And we'll look a little bit at the different kind of groups that do this. I tend to start by talking about an IT help desk because it's something everybody has experience with, and it's kind of an easy concept to wrap this around. So in an IT help desk, you'll have maybe 5 or 6 people, maybe 10 people, and they're taking calls for support. But they don't all have the same skill set, you know, so it's not like you can just, anybody can take the next call. So they're passing around calls in hunt groups and things like that. And also, they don't just take calls. They might take a call, and then they might walk away and do a desk visit or do some research on the internet and go do a project and then come back and take some calls. They have personal workflow along with the process workflow. And for those people, it's very difficult to keep track of how we can effectively handle calls and also to keep track of what they're actually doing. So that's what TeamQ is really focused on these smaller groups, up to 25 agents in a single queue. We can have up to 50 different queues, but those small agent groups are what we're going to use. And what we're going to do that's different is what we call a pull model of call management. Now, we all know the push model. The push model is I'm an agent, I hang up, I get the oldest call, or whatever, you know, maybe there's some skills routing involved. But that's the push model. The pull model says I'm an agent, I finish what I'm doing. Maybe I'm ready to take another call, maybe I'm not, but when I am, I go to a screen and I see information on all the calls that are waiting, and I take and pull the appropriate call to myself. In other words, based on my skill set, my territory coverage, the accounts that I manage, whatever it is, there will be information on that screen that lets me make a call routing decision. I take that call is transferred to me, and when I'm done and I hang up, I click on the app to say I'm done with the call, and now I've kind of wrapped that up, and now I've got all the reporting and all those other pieces going on in the background. So the benefits here tend to be situations where agents can effectively control the calls based on perhaps different skill sets or territories or things along that line. And we'll see how this works, and you can get an idea of where it's available. When I do this out live in front of prospective customers, by the time I'm about 2/3 of the way through the presentation, somebody always says, John in order entry has this problem in this where he's got these 5 people. Almost everybody sees something. They didn't think they needed an app as a solution because they didn't know it existed, but they see the fit as we go through this. So if you're going to distribute calls within an organization, you start on the very easy end. All PBXs have hunt groups, or in the case of Microsoft Skype, they have response groups. And that's nice, simple, round robin, linear, whatever you want. We send the calls there. And there are some cases where that does what you want. And on the other end, we have contact center problems, skills-based routing contact centers, multimedia contact centers, and they're the heavy lifters in that large room of process flow workers. And sitting in between is TeamQ. TeamQ is for kind of those little problems we couldn't solve when we sold the contact center. When we sold the contact center, there were some little groups that just didn't fit in to that ACD functionality exactly, or from a pricing point of view, the licenses were too expensive on the contact center side. TeamQ, once again, because it's just a software license on CX, tends to be far more economically priced than any of the competition piece. So as we start, we're going to look at kind of figuring out who a team would be and how we'd send the calls out, and then we'll do just kind of a little simulation of a call to see how that works. So we always start, with everything we do about price, because this business is a continuing, war about what's coming in and what's going out, and you like to get your value for your money. So we do an extremely good job in this area for a couple of reasons. One, it is just price good, and we'll see that towards the end. But also, because it leverages the existing CXE system, if you're already buying a CXE for one of the many other things it does, getting this TeamQ along with it is so inexpensive that the price is not going to be an issue at all. Now, if you want a standalone CXE system just to do TeamQ, so you're paying for all the resources just for TeamQ, that's different, although it's still a very, very good price. It's going to be much less expensive. Now, I'm always cautious with this piece because we're not saying buy TeamQ instead of that ACD package on the PBX, because there will be all sorts of cases where the ACD package has things in it you need that TeamQ doesn't. TeamQ is not really a full call center ACD kind of product. It doesn't have reader boards. It doesn't have the ability for a supervisor to monitor calls. It isn't really targeted at that type of market. It's more for this informal work group. And so we're always careful up front in figuring out who we're going to talk about as customers for this particular piece. One of the great things about the way we've implemented it is, from our point of view, the requirements are a PBX with which we integrate, which is just about every PBX out there that I know of, and a telephone number at which we can call the agent. Could be their desk phone, could be their mobile phone, could be their home phone, their soft phone working at home. And then the third requirement is they have to run the client, the desktop Windows client, to do that. But with just those restrictions, basically you can quite easily have a follow the sun type of deployment, a work at home, half the workers at home or work at home half the time. The ability to be very flexible in terms of when you get your PC on the network and you have a phone next to you, you're ready to participate in a TeamQ situation. So the trick is the visual element here. When we first had this application 20 years ago, it was called Desktop Call Manager, and there was both a work group, and an individual implementation. And the tagline was, know who's calling and why. And that's kind of what the tag for this should be in terms of what's different about what we do is we engage the caller with questions, we gather information, we take that metadata and process it a bit and display it on a screen. And that lets the agents look at that screen and know the appropriate call to take. And then there's other things they can do with calls that we'll look at as well. So let's look at from the caller experience first and sort of go through. One of the great things, is because we're integrated into the PBX, we immediately have access to some information. One of those pieces would be the caller ID. So we now have the caller ID, and we can use that caller ID in a number of ways. And beyond the caller ID, we can start actually asking them questions. We can ask up to 2 questions with numeric input. So, what is your account number? What is your employee ID? What is your software serial number? Anything along those lines. And now we have that piece of information we're going to be able to process. And then we can ask up to 2 multiple choice questions. Press 1 for Windows, 2 for Linux. For support on Windows, press 1. For support on the network, press 2. Those kind of things. And so now we have those pieces of information as well. And now I have a caller, and I kind of know who's calling and why. Now, part of what I know is a little limited. Knowing that caller ID number, very few of us are going to know the caller ID numbers of all the people, that we talk to. But I can do something with that number. If I prompted them for an account number, once again, the account number itself is probably not very helpful, but there's probably some place where that account number can quite easily be translated into other information. So the trick here is to take this metadata that I've gathered and go out into the enterprise. Here we go with unified communications again, and go out into the enterprise and trade that number for something that's more valuable on a screen. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a little data dip, and the data dip basically is something that we can, as long as you have I'm using Salesforce on the screen here, but any database that has either a web service, a stored procedure call, an API, anything along those lines, I can write a little program that pushes in that account number or contract number or caller ID or whatever we want and pulls back more useful data. So in this case, I'm pulling back their warranty status, how long they've been a customer, and what their support plan is. On an internal IT help desk, I could pull back their PC, their physical location in the building, their software level. So all this information that would be handy for an agent to know in terms of making a decision to take the call can now be extracted from those databases. And with that information, I'm kind of now ready to talk to the caller. I look at the queue, and I can do the typical queue announcement. You're number 2 in the queue. Your estimated wait time is 4 minutes. Now, this information is perhaps not as valuable as it seems in a pull model, because what we have here is a skills-based routing pull model call control setup, meaning I'm not necessarily going to take the oldest call. Depending on what the skills are, it's going to be different. So you may or may not announce that. It's just going to depend. If you choose to or not, the next thing you're going to do is ask them how they want to be handled. To hold for a representative, press 1. If they do that, we hold that caller on the CXE system, and they're in the queue and ready to go. Now, the upside to that is they're there, and we can process them very quickly. The downside is they are consuming a port on both the phone system and the CX. Well, on the phone system, that's pretty typical for ACD, but on the CX, that's a little different. So that is possible. It depends on how your queue is structured, that you would need more ports on the CX system to handle that. But either way, it's one of the choices we offer. We can have them leave a message, and you can simply have them leave a message if they don't want to wait in the queue, and then you can go into whatever the associated mailbox is and process the calls from there. Or they can request a callback. If they request a callback, we probably set it up to verify their callback number. So just by default, what we'd probably do is read back their caller ID and ask if that's a good callback number, and if not, let them put in a callback number. And then when they say request a callback, we say, okay, your callback's been queued, thank you. We hang up, and we're now not using any resources on the phone system or the CX system. But this caller is still in queue. He's still visible in the queue, aging through the queue, and when the time comes to take the call, when the agent hits on that, instead of transferring, we make an outgoing call and reconnect to that caller. So now I have some callers in the queue here. This caller decided to wait as well. Now in this virtual queue, I have 3 callers, and One of them is looking for Linux support, the newest caller, where the other two that are waiting in the queue are looking for Windows support. So now already I have that differentiated queue that really is one of the reasons that TeamQ can be so valuable. So now, along with that queue, I have a group of agents, and those agents have different skill sets. And in this case, I have one Linux specialist. He's the good, sharp guy on Linux. And then I have two people who are Windows specialists, and maybe they can take Linux calls, but they're not really, that's not their forte. So we're assuming those other two calls, those other two Windows specialists are on calls, because otherwise, that you'd be getting those calls out of the queue. Now, as the Linux specialist, when I look at the queue and I see those three calls, I can make some decisions. I can see caller number one and how long they were in the queue. Now, if they were in the queue 20 minutes, I might just say, well, I've just got to take that call anyway. I'm Linux specialist, but I can do Windows as well. That person's been there too long. But if they've been there 45 seconds and the Linux caller, while they're newer, I know that I'm the only one that can get to them, I would probably take that call, even though it's out of order in the queue. And this is the strength of TeamQ, is the visual nature of information that allows me as an agent to balance the way I use that queue. And I can't just take calls. There's some other things I can do, but this is really the important piece. This is the kind of area where people start to talk about, well, I have this group where they're kind of like this, and maybe they're not, software support agents. Maybe they're a queue for returning products or a queue for verifying ship dates, all sorts of different things. But that differing information is what makes it really strong. So that Linux agent goes ahead and takes the call using the pull method. Those other calls will be now handled most likely by the other agents who are Windows specialists when they get off the call. Now, as that queue builds up, and as an agent, when I'm off my call, I kind of look. Now, as that Linux specialist, I handled my Linux call. I got off of it. I look over there. There's a couple of calls in the queue. We have two agents, and I can see that they're agents on calls. That screen gives me that visibility as well. And now I can decide, well, I have a project, that I really have to do. There's something that I know I have to get done today. Now I get to make the choice. I can simply walk away and go do a project. Even though I'm logged into the queue, if I'm in pull mode, it's not going to do anything. And I can just go maybe go out on the internet and download a patch that somebody needs and take care of that, then come back and look at the queue again, and I'm ready to go. So in pull model, the agents have a lot of control over their own personal workflow and what they do. Now, once I have these calls in the queue, I have quite a few choices. Obviously, I can take the calls. But there's some other things that are interesting. So here's a screenshot. This is one of the agents. You can see if you look at the top there, this is Tom. Tom's an agent. He's on a call. You can see he's on a call that was from orders. And you notice that's a team name. So that shows you that a single agent can be logged into more than one group at a time, and they will see and be able to handle calls from all the groups that they're logged into. So they could be in just one group, or they could be across multiple groups. So Tom's on a call, Mark's on a call, Bill's on a call. That's what the blue status line is showing you. You can see what the subjects of those calls were. This is the IT help desk, so there's some Win7 support, some network support, and an office support down there. But there's also this call that's Bill who called in, and that call says on hold for Tom G. But you can see Tom G's on another call. And this is one of the great things, particularly in a queue where you get repeat callers. And let's say this is a support queue. Maybe a half hour ago, Bill called in, and Tom answered. And being a good tech support agent, Tom said, oh, reset your system and see if the problem goes away. And Bill said, okay, fine, got off the phone. Tom got on another call. As is so often the case, Bill reset the system and it didn't fix it, so he calls back in again. When it pops up, Tom looks down and sees that call from Bill and understands he should take that call. So he highlights the Bill call while he's still on the other call and hits the hold icon up at the top of the screen, and now that call is holding for Tom. And when Tom's done with his call he's on now, he'll reach down and take that call. So the ability to reserve calls is inherent in the visual nature of the screen. Now, if you notice, there's some other buttons up there. Take call. If I'm an agent, I'm ready to take a call. I highlight a call and I hit take call, and it transfers that call to me. When it transfers that call to me, I am off the CX system. I'm not taking up a port at all. It's just a regular call, and I take that call. When I'm done with that call, there'll be a hang up button on my screen. I'll click hang up, and that terminates the call record. But I also could hit message and send that call to a mailbox, either to the system mailbox associated with this queue, to my personal mailbox, to any mailbox I wanted. I could also redirect the call to an extension or perhaps to a priority queue. So maybe I'm this group manager and I look down and I notice that Martin's been on hold over a minute. It's going to make my SLAs look bad. I click Martin and I hit redirect and I send him to the priority queue. Also, if I hit a call to take a call and it was a callback in the queue, you would actually, instead of have a take call button, you would have a make call button that would show up. And when you click that, it would make the outgoing call and connect you. So now basically what I've done is I've enabled the agents using the visual information generated from the metadata that we capture to make intelligent call routing decisions. And the architecture here is simply CXE connected to your PBX and on your network, Windows clients on the agents wherever they are, and that's pretty much it. So those agents internally, they could be sitting at desks and running this in a typical kind of call center solution or a work group solution, and that agent could choose to work at home that afternoon instead, bring up his VPN, log in, launch the client, have a phone at home, whether it's his home phone, his mobile phone, whatever he wanted. When an agent logs in, it actually asks them what phone number they're at that time. So it's very easy to be mobile with this system. Now, I talked early on about connecting to some other databases, and we looked at one. We have a very inexpensive way to turn the metadata into usable data, where we go out and do data dips. But the other thing we also do that's a little unusual is we do a push model, or excuse me, a pull model screen pop. Everybody kind of knows what screen pops are in call centers, and they tend to add some really incredible expense because there's a CTI link to the phone system, and you're monitoring agent status, and when a particular agent becomes available and the decision is made to send a call, then the software needs to know to pop the screen relative to the ID of the caller that's being sent, and it gets very expensive. Screen pops tend to bring the numbers up above $100,000 for these kind of solutions. But that's not how we do it. When I go to take a call, I can right-click that call on our screen, and there'll be something that basically says screen pop. And when I hit that, once again, I can run one of those web services calls, stored procedure calls, etc. So if the screen on the agent's desk is capable of having a record pushed into it, and most of them are today, then it's just a matter of when I configure that queue of putting the link in. If you look down at that link, obviously it's not, mywebservice.com was actually the web service I wrote when I was testing these, so that would be more, more likely, salesforce.com/something or other. The customer ID is what I'm sending as the input. So I know the customer ID because it's one of the things that's associated with the record from where I answered the call, and I push that into, let's say, salesforce.com, and as the call rings, the salesforce.com app opens up with my record open. And it doesn't have to be salesforce.com again, it's just something we had handy. Anything that has the correct kind of connectivity, and almost all packages have that today. So I did a little caveating up front about we don't have everything that's in a call center, like monitoring and reader boards, but there's a lot of stuff that we do have. We have a really great screen where agents can see what's going on. So you saw the call queue screen before, and the call queue screen showed you which agents were on calls, how long they'd been on a call, how many calls were waiting to be answered. That's all important information. But just by hitting the agent status queue, you can also see all the other agents who are signed in but aren't on calls. And that includes idle agents. You can see who's available to take calls. Monitoring is something you would do when you just want to watch the queue and you don't want to have anybody send you calls or anything else. You can see there are 3 of them on a call, and somebody has gone on break, and somebody has gone on wrap-up. Now, wrap-up is built into the system. When you build a queue, you can say, I always get 30 seconds of wrap-up. And at the end of that 30 seconds, you'd be back in idle. But the on-break one is a custom one. I can go in and build as many custom busy status codes as I want. Like if this were an IT help desk, I would probably build one called desk visit, where when I was on a call and they said, yeah, I can't seem to get this to work, and you said, well, let me come see. And when you popped up the record, you might have pulled the building and break and location number for the user, so you know where to go. And then you go into the busy status screen and you select desk visit, And now it'll show you're on a desk visit, and everybody else will know you're working on something, but you're not at your desk. And all these are, summarized in the reports. And it's just very easy for everybody in this informal group, supervisors and other agents alike, to know what's going on. More for just the supervisors, we have logs that are available that are sort of real-time snapshots. And we have agent logs, call logs. They'll show you what's going on in the queue that you're logged into. And we also have a queue log itself that you could actually look and see in my queue what's going on right now. Now, these are not the reports. The reporting package is separate. These are real-time snapshots that a supervisor can look at to get an idea how they're doing. So you don't get that surprise report at the end of the day and find out you weren't doing so well. But for that report at the end of the day, we have a full reporting package with all these activity and status reports. And these are all written in Microsoft SQL report writer, which means they can easily be modified, plus all the data is accessible for any other custom reports that you might want on this group. And they're all pretty much, typical reports. This is the agent call activity, so you can see what's going on, here, calls coming in, who answered them, etc. And then at the end of every report, there's a summary as well. So we have a lot of what a traditional ACD has, but not everything, because we're not trying to do exactly the same job. What we're trying to do is a little different. We're using these informal work groups and trying to more effectively route calls, let them control the time, and let you gather information. It'd be nice to know how much time a particular agent was, spending on desk visits or on various breaks and things like that. So this has a different kind of reporting information available than your standard ACD queues do. So the great thing here is about the integration. If all I did was show you the incoming phone number from the caller, that's really, there's no value there. If that's all you have, then put it in push model, right? I mean, because you certainly can do that, and we'll just push calls to them. And that might still be a benefit because it is a lot less expensive. But this is really when you're going to start integrating with some of your other systems. And the architecture is simple. If you're looking at a CXE system, this is a couple of software licenses that go on there, and it's very, very inexpensive. And while on these webinars we don't talk price, we certainly are happy to talk to anybody offline and talk about what it would cost to add this to a system. We're comfortable saying money's never the object with this. The object is whether when you went through this, you recognize something that you have groups that could take advantage of. So I always leave this slide in that marketing put in there because it's not going to be easy. What's hard is right up front figuring out where you're going to use this. Now, once you find a place where you use it, it is definitely easy to buy it, configure it, and use it. But the hard part is to spend some time thinking about where you might find this useful. Now, I've talked about sort of how this works. I'm going to run through the process a little bit so that it's clear what the experience really is. So here I have something, and this is set up for an IT help desk. And somebody calls in, and it could be an external call or it can be an internal call. Once the call gets to CXE, we don't care whether it's internal or external. We capture whatever information we can from the integration, and we run a script. And the script might sound something like this. Welcome to the Dynacom help desk. The number you are calling from is blah, blah, blah. To use this as your callback number, press 1. Otherwise, press 9. If the user presses 1, we move on. If they press 9, we prompt them to enter the callback number that they want. These prompts are all optional. I'm going to go through a lot of prompts here. I'm basically throwing everything in on this one. The minimum prompt would be, welcome to the help desk. Please stand by for the next available agent. I mean, it doesn't have to be complex, but the value is in our gathering the information. So let's gather some more information. Please enter your employee number. And again, this could be your contract number, your software serial number, your zip code. I mean, there's all sorts of numeric info that can be useful in routing calls. And then we do a multiple choice question. For support on Windows 7, press 1. For support on Microsoft Office, press 2. Help with your network, press 3. For all others, press 4. Now, we're asking here one numeric question and one multiple choice question. And we're going to pull that information out and display it on the screen. Remember, we can have up to 2 of each type of questions. Now we've gone out. In this case, I'm doing the queue again. Your position is 4. It's 45 seconds. hold for a representative, press 1, leave a message 2, request a callback, press 3, and to return to the previous menu, press the star key. They press 1, and now they're in the queue. And there's the, the queue screen, and you can see they entered their customer ID number, but we're showing their name because we went out and did that little inexpensive data dip to figure that out. We asked for the multiple choice question, and you can see that. So now as an agent, I know who's calling and why, and that's the value of this application. As we started talking more and more about this, there was always confusion over what we were trying to do. Initially, because we don't have a really good phrase for this, people assumed we had a call center product and we wanted to sell it to replace your existing call center product. And that's generally not the case. They do different things, as hopefully you've seen in this presentation. But the question still comes up on cost, and so there's a white paper that I think you get automatically, and I'll let you know at the end of this, that shows you kind of an ROI comparison, and it talks about what it costs to have basically this kind of application as opposed to the typical ACD call center type application. And as always, we finally get to the great screen, which is the question screen.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Neil. Yes, I forgot to mention at the beginning, but we will make that white paper available. So in the follow-up email that you'll receive later today, we'll include the slide download, the recording, as well as that white paper. And there are a few questions coming in. So if you have a question that you haven't already submitted, you can find the question box in the bottom corner, or if it's minimized, use that orange arrow in the upper right. Neil, first question. When an agent initiates a caller hold, does the caller get any indication of the status change?
No, the caller simply remains in the same status. Now, what they're getting is programmable overall, and that is silence, or what you would call music on hold, which is any wave file that you want to play cycles through there. But no, they won't hear, Tom has just put you on hold, here's next call. It's just going to be they're waiting for the call.
Okay, next. So can you clarify, does a port free up when the agent takes the call?
Yes, it does. The way it works is it comes in, we interface with the caller, we ask them those questions. If they say hold, we hold that call on a CX port, but when the agent clicks take call, it gets transferred to the agent, CX frees up, no resources being used. If they click message, we stay in CX, we take a message, and then the port clears up, and if they clear callback, then we clear that port immediately, and we make another call out when the time comes.
Okay. Next, do you offer music on hold?
Yes, so we offer wave files on hold. It comes with 4 basic kind of wave files. There's 2 piano concertos and I think 2 violin concertos on it that are nice, quiet, soft, commercial, licensed type files for that, and you can put those in the queue anywhere you want. But you also have the ability to simply generate your own wave files and put those in the queue. So if you wanted to run something else that talked to the callers and ran them through your monthly specials or any of those other things, you can have those as well.
Okay, thanks. Is there a desktop client for Mac or an iOS?
No, there's only a Windows client right now, and we'll wait and see. I have to say, while there's always a customer that really wants something on a Mac, there's usually just a customer, and it's very difficult for us to put all the work and time in for a Mac client for the very small number of Mac users in the enterprise world that we come across.
Okay. Next question. Are the reports customizable?
So they're a little bit customizable in the basic package that we give you. They're fully customizable using the Microsoft SQL report generator. So if you're comfortable with that tool, then yes, you can both build your own reports and customize ours.
Okay, thanks, Neil. That looks like it wraps up the questions. So just want to close up, let everyone know we appreciate you taking the time to join us. Look for an email from us later today with, as I mentioned again, the recording, the slides, as well as that white paper. And we'll also look forward to seeing you on another AVST webinar, hopefully pretty soon. And if you have questions that you think of after we conclude here, you can email those to us at info@avst.com, and I'll go ahead and let Neil give it some closing words as well.
Thank you, Ann. The only thing I'd add is that info@avst.com is also a great place to send us comments on, what you'd like to see in these webinars. We do these because we think customers will take advantage of this information, but it's always nice when customers get in touch with us and say, hey, I would like to see a webinar on this subject, or could you go more in depth on this subject, or could you make them shorter? We hear that one every now and then too. But so by all means, give us a lot of feedback. So thanks everybody for coming.
Have a great day, everyone.
To learn more about AVST, please visit www.avst.com.